Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. Today's video is quite a sensitive subject. It doesn't get reported in the West that much, mainly because they want to paint Ukrainians to be heroes, and they want to paint Ukrainians that can't do anything wrong. It's a civilized country, it's a democratic country, and basically everyone else, we're talking about Iraqis, Syrians, Indians, Africans, are basically second class, and they are treated like that. So there's some stories coming up all over the world. Times of India saying how Indians have been typecast, they've been racially attacked, racially abused. All the Ukrainians have been fled, they've been let on trains, they are being let through the borders, but all the Indians and Africans are basically left behind. And same thing happening on a Daily Mail. You can see African refugees fleeing Ukraine are facing shockingly racist treatment, with border guards blocking their attempts to cross the border into Poland. Black people fleeing escalating conflict in Ukraine are suffering from racism. A Nigerian family was told no blacks as they tried to board to safety. And you get the point. So let me show you some clips first of all, and then I'll give you my point of view and I'll give you my thoughts as well.
The unthinkable has happened to them, and this is not a developing third world nation. This is Europe.
Now with the Russians marching in, it's changed the calculus entirely. Tens of thousands of people have tried to flee the city. There will be many more. People are hiding out in bomb shelters. But this isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan, that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen. So it's partly human nature, but they are not in denial.
Emotional for me, because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed, children being killed every day with Putin's missiles and his helicopters and his...
From boarding a train and left stranded at a railway station in Lviv as Ukrainians were allowed on. Others said they were turned back from the border and were even being shot at. Like this video, Indian students claim Ukrainian guards on the Polish border beat them up and didn't allow them to cross. Tens of thousands of international students have been stuck in Ukraine since the
These people left without taking the blacks, man. None of the blacks, man.
There's been a lot of segregation and racism. It seems like there's a hierarchy of Ukrainians first, Indians second, Africans last. So there has been a lot of segregation in that sense. And then amongst the communities trying to flee Ukraine, there's been a lot of violence.
King, but when you, я тобі зараз скажу, хто я. Привіт, я зараз цей телефон.
These are the black community. We are not allowing any black people to enter inside the gates. We are all here. It's only Ukrainians that they are allowing in. Even the ones with kids.
हम लोग सब रोमानियन बॉर्डर पे खड़े हैं, रोमानियन यूक्रेनियन बॉर्डर पे। अराउंड 500 to 600 बच्चे हैं। ये लोग यूक्रेनियंस को बहुत प्रेफर कर रहे हैं, यूक्रेनियंस को ही प्रेफरेंस दे रहे हैं, इंडियंस को 1 या 2 निकाल रहे हैं एट अ टाइम।
On est là exposé dehors avec le froid qu'il y a ici. On ne nous donne toujours pas où nous abriter au fait. On est exposé avec le froid.
यहाँ पे ठंड इतनी है कि हम बता नहीं सकते, इतना ठंड, और कुछ शेल्टर नहीं है, वॉशरूम का कोई ये नहीं है, शेल्टर नहीं है, कहीं पे कुछ खाने पीने का कुछ ये नहीं है, रेस्टोरेंट नहीं है, पूरा ओवर क्राउडेड हो गया है।
We are being thrown out of the train. They are not even allowing us in. Indian students are being attacked with sticks and stuff.
We don't have arms! We don't have arms! We don't have arms! We are students! We are students! We are students! We are students!
So you have these reporters who are shockingly saying that this is happening in Europe, the people in Ukraine are civilized, and they're comparing obviously Iraq and Afghanistan, and even the Ukrainian deputy minister, he's saying there's people with blue eyes, blonde hair, things like that, and I just find it really, really disrespectful. I mean, we're talking about human life here. What does one human life matter over another? You know, yeah, they're Europeans, but don't Syrians have a right to human life or human rights? Don't Iraqis have a right to human rights? So why is the difference? You know, if America goes into Iraq and Afghanistan kills hundreds of thousands of Syrians or Iraqis, it's okay, is it? Because they're not civilized enough. And then you have this article by the Sunday Telegraph, and he says, you can see here, Ukraine is a European country, its people watch Netflix and have Instagram accounts. So don't Iraqis watch Netflix? Don't Iraqis have Instagram accounts? So can you see the amount of racism that's going on in the West? It's all the white privilege club, you know, they all want to be with the white privilege club. Can you see the disrespect of lives if you're not white? You know, the way these Indians and Africans are treated at the border by Ukrainians. You know, all the Ukrainians or white people are let through, and these Indians and Africans are just left to die with nowhere to live, no food, no nothing. They can't escape the country. Can you see the amount of disrespect and racism that's going on? And all of this is unreported in the West because the West don't care. If you're not white, then who cares? We only care about white people. We only care about Europeans. If you're another race, then, you know, we don't care if you live or die. Can you see the amount of disrespect? I was watching George Galloway the other day, and I learned a lot from watching his channel, and I did not realize that Ukraine was a launch pad for the Nazis to try and invade Russia. So this is why for Russia, it's very, very sensitive. It's a very sensitive subject. And it should be for the rest of the world as well. And I did not know about this either. And I saw it on George Galloway's latest video, that Russia was one of the first countries who was opposed the apartheid in South Africa, while the rest of Europe and the rest of the world was ignoring the fact. They were ignoring it. Exactly the same way they're ignoring what's happening in Palestine, ignoring what's happening to all the Palestinians, and it's apartheid. Same way the apartheid was going on in South Africa, Russia was the only country that was standing up against the apartheid at the time, until all the other countries started coming into line. But, you know, a lot of countries were just ignoring it. And the same way, same thing's happening now in Israel, apartheid. And the funniest thing is, you see a lot of Jews and Israelis who are actually demonstrating and protesting around the world against Russia for this invasion. They're calling it an invasion, they're calling it apartheid, they're calling it genocide, and they are doing it themselves to Palestinians. And it's beyond a joke. When I see things like that, I just end up laughing. Another thing I find funny is Western reporters of Ukraine. They're painting Ukrainians to be these innocent victims. They've done nothing wrong. They're white innocent victims, and people all over the parliaments, in European Parliament, in British Parliament, they're just getting standing ovations. And in America they're getting standing ovations. They're being sounded like they're heroes. So this is what I mean. Zelensky was given a speech via video to the EU Parliament, and everybody seems to stand up and give him a standing ovation. And when I saw this, script that he was writing, it's almost like he stole it from some novel or something. He's talking about life and death and light over dark. It's almost sounding like, it's basically fighting good versus evil. And I just ended up laughing because This is who writes these speeches? The same people that write Biden speeches. Let me show you.
Життя переможе смерть, а світ темряву.
And he gets a standing ovation for that. And something else I found really hilarious. Watch this.
Слава Україні.
So these are all the people giving him a standing ovation. But I want to show you this guy. This guy here, right in the middle, he's just motionless. He's just sitting there, not giving a clap, and he's just watching. And there's a couple of other people at the back as well, so they obviously don't agree with what's going on here. So it's good to see there are at least one or two people with common sense and with some sense around in the European Parliament. I literally think that all of them have been bought out in some way or other, or they're just all going along with the narrative. They don't seem to have a mind of their own. They don't seem to think about the big picture. They don't seem to think about what's led up to this situation. They don't seem to look at Russia's point of view. They don't seem to look at Russia's security concerns. They don't seem to look at why the Minsk agreement was ignored. They don't seem to look at why NATO has broken all of the promises and moving more and more towards Russian territory. They don't look at any of that. They all have this one-track mind thinking, and it's dangerous to have these people as politicians making decisions for the rest of us. It's bloody dangerous. And those people that are sitting down, I'd love to buy you guys a drink. You know, Ukraine is not a democratic country. The leader Zelensky was not elected. You know, it came as part of the color revolution. You know, it was part of a coup orchestrated by the United States. The elected leader was kicked out. And this is where all of the trouble has started. And plus, a lot of people don't know the history of Ukraine. Ukraine stood beside Germans, the Nazis. And this is an article written by Reuters. And you can see the headline here, commentary, Ukraine's neo-Nazi problem. As Ukraine's struggle against Russia and its proxies continues, Kiev must also contend with the growing problem behind the front lines. Many of the National Military's members come from the Azov movement, one of the 30-odd privately funded volunteer battalions that in the early days of the war helped regular army to defend Ukrainian territory against Russian separatist proxies. Although Azov uses Nazi-era symbolism and recruits neo-Nazis into its ranks. And then you got this article here also, who are Ukraine's far-right Azov regiment? The far-right neo-Nazi group has expanded to become part of Ukraine's armed forces, a street militia and a political party. So can you see, does this look like this is civilized behavior for you? You got a neo-Nazi group who's part of the Ukraine armed forces, part of the government probably. So does this sound like they are civilized to you? Does this sound like they're more civilized than Syrians or Afghans or Iraqis? It seems to me they're much worse. And the Western papers are not reporting on this. None of them will report this. They will report Ukraine as a bunch of heroes. They're Europeans. They stood up to might of Russia, and to the Western people, they all like they can't do any wrong. Then you got all of these racism, happening all over the border areas. They're letting all the white people through, the white privileged people, all the Ukrainians, and they're leaving all the Indians behind. They're leaving all the black people behind. And you've seen from the clips how they've been treating all these Indians and black people, and you call Ukrainian civilized, and all of these reporters are reporting Ukraine is, they can't do any wrong, they're Europeans, they're civilized. Seriously, and they're not reporting the real story. There's racist elements in Ukraine, and these articles prove that. And there's Nazism still exists in Ukraine. And America, out of all people, the Europeans, out of all people, are supporting that. Seriously, wake up, people. Wake up and see what the real truths are. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say for now. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll see you in the next video.